In the middle of the Caribbean Sea, a family was enjoying a peaceful holiday on their yacht. Julia, the mother, dove into the water for a swim. As she floated on her back, she felt something strange brush past her, but when she looked around, nothing was there. She tried to relax again, but within seconds, the same eerie sensation returned. This time, panic rose inside her, and she started swimming back toward the yacht. Suddenly, something grabbed her leg and yanked her underwater. Julia screamed, but her daughter Casey couldn't hear a thing. She had headphones on. Her husband Tom and their son Ben were busy fishing and didn't notice the struggle until Julia barely surfaced, choking on seawater. Tom finally realized she was missing and rushed to the edge of the yacht. The moment he saw her splashing helplessly, he called the kids and jumped into the water, pulling Julia back with him. The children helped lift her on board. Shaken and terrified, Julia insisted something had pulled her down, but then convinced herself maybe it was just the waves. That night, the family celebrated Ben's birthday. Casey stepped outside to take a video call from her boyfriend. He showed her the sky over the city, towering, dark storm clouds rolling in fast. Before she could grasp what she was seeing, the call froze and cut out. She rushed inside to tell the family, but Tom said it was probably just weak signal this far from land. Just then, a low rumbling echoed across the sea. When they went outside, they saw a massive pod of whales moving together through the water. Tom explained, "Whales follow Earth's magnetic fields, but in storms, they get confused." Suddenly, the yacht jolted violently, knocking Ben to the floor. Worried the hull was damaged, Tom dove beneath the yacht to check. When he resurfaced, he was bleeding badly. Something had slashed his shoulder open. Julia stitched the wound, while Tom explained he had sensed a huge creature behind him just before turning too quickly into the propeller. Soon, the radar picked up strange blips, and the family heard a low, disturbing hum coming from somewhere underwater. Before they could react, fiery objects started streaking across the sky. Huge explosions echoed as they hit the ocean and nearby land. At first, they thought they were meteors, until one crashed close to the yacht. Tom immediately tried starting the engine. It sputtered, worked for a second, then died completely. Then another fireball hit the horizon. Tom suddenly understood. These aren't meteors, they're satellites falling out of orbit. Moments later, smoke began rising from the yacht's engine room. The storm intensified. The compass spun wildly, the yacht rocked violently, and a high-pitched ringing filled the air. The electricity cut out. Windows started cracking. Julia's nose began bleeding, Casey threw up, and Ben hit his head during the chaos. Tom managed to get the lights on briefly, but the storm grew more violent until finally, everything went black. When the family woke up the next morning, the storm had passed, but the world had completely changed. The ocean was gone. The yacht sat stranded on dry land. Every direction was barren, cracked earth. Casey checked her phone, no network at all. Ben played with a few dead crabs lying nearby. Tom inspected the compass. It was reversed, meaning Earth's magnetic poles had flipped. The last time that happened was hundreds of thousands of years ago. Casey broke down, thinking her boyfriend must be dead. Julia tried to comfort her, but Casey pushed her away and hid inside the yacht. Tom kept trying the radio until finally he reached someone, a man named No, the captain of a submarine that had also ended up stranded on land. He confirmed their worst fear. The magnetic poles had reversed, the oceans had withdrawn, and most of the world was underwater. But the ocean would return in about a week. And when it did, the waves would be catastrophic. He warned them to get to higher ground before the flood returned. He also revealed his submarine had room for only 3 survivors, and they could save the kids. Tom and Julia begged him to save their children. No shared his coordinates and told them to hurry. The family packed, ready to start their long journey the next morning. But at sunrise, Tom noticed something moving nearby. A limping man approached slowly, gripping a harpoon, with a snarling dog at his side. Tom cautiously offered him water, but the man spoke in an unknown language, and then suddenly smashed the bottle over Tom's head and kicked him brutally. Julia screamed and ran, but the stranger was already on top of Tom. With a single thrust, he drove the harpoon into Tom's stomach, then sliced his throat. Julia rushed back to the yacht bleeding, telling the kids to hide under the couch while she armed them with a flare gun. She grabbed a kitchen knife and hid in the bathroom. The man broke into the yacht, searched every room, and grabbed food. When he headed toward the bathroom, Julia escaped through a small hatch. But the dog spotted her and attacked, forcing her to stab it. Hearing his dog die, the man charged outside. Julia tried climbing back in through a broken window, but he caught her and beat her brutally. As he attempted to choke her, Casey fired the flare gun, hitting him in the chest and setting him ablaze. The yacht caught fire. The kids ran. Julia kicked the man aside, grabbed Tom's map and backpack, and fled. Together, the family cried beside Tom's body, saying their final goodbye. But the man wasn't dead. Burning and enraged, he staggered out of the yacht, forcing the family to run again. Minutes later, the yacht exploded behind them. Exhausted, they stopped by a small waterfall. Casey blamed herself, thinking the man followed them because of Ben's birthday balloons. Ben felt guilty, but Julia reassured him. None of it was his fault. As they continued walking, they passed a dead hammerhead shark lying in dry mud. Then Julia spotted the limping man approaching again. They ran and tumbled down a sand dune, landing near a pit of toxic waste. Carefully, they crossed it and temporarily lost the man. Soon, they came across massive dead sea creatures, trash from the ocean floor, and plastic scattered everywhere. Ben slowed down, dehydrated. Julia panicked when she realized their water bottle was nearly empty. Casey had forgotten to close it properly. Julia snapped in anger. Casey broke down, arguing they wouldn't survive anyway. Still, after calming down, they continued forward. Eventually, they found a crashed airplane. Something moved inside, but it was just birds. They decided to sleep there for the night. Julia found Tom's jacket with their family photo inside. Casey asked how her parents fell in love, and Julia softly recounted the story. That night, when Casey stepped outside, the limping man suddenly grabbed her, but Julia ambushed him from behind and stabbed him repeatedly until he stopped breathing. By morning, insects swarmed the man's corpse. The family noticed his body had bite marks, meaning something dangerous lurked nearby. As they walked away, crabs started crawling out of his mouth. Later, Ben wandered ahead and tried drinking from a small pond. Julia yanked him back, warning the water could kill him. Under the blazing sun, they found old chairs and built a makeshift shade tent. Julia treated Ben with an injection, and they spent the night there. At dawn, a horrible scratching noise woke Julia. Thousands of crabs were advancing toward them. They ran. Ahead was a massive cargo ship stranded on the dry seabed. 3 surviving crew members were inside. A woman tried to help them, but 2 men refused. They locked the family outside in a shipping container. Crabs swarmed the container. Julia climbed with the kids onto the roof, but crabs bit her ankle before they pulled her up. Crabs poured inside through a hole and soon overwhelmed the crew members inside the ship. Julia fainted from blood loss and woke up alone in a sandstorm. She screamed for her children until Casey found her. Ben had discovered an open container where they hid from the storm. Julia sterilized her leg wound with Tom's lighter, screaming in agony. After the storm, they found another container filled with water bottles, a radio, and a gun. She contacted No again, telling him their map was gone. He warned them. They were attacked by arthropods, mutated creatures driven insane by oxygen exposure, and the ocean would return much sooner than expected. He fired a flare to guide them. Hours later, Ben used a broken toilet to relieve himself, and finally, they saw the submarine in the distance. But they had to cross a narrow, rocky passage. As they walked, the ground shook, rocks collapsed, separating Julia from her children behind a stone wall. Julia begged them to go without her. Casey refused, but eventually pulled Ben away, promising Julia she'd come back. At the submarine, they found No dying in a pool of blood. With his last breath, he told them they could take the submarine now. Casey immediately ran back to get her mother. Meanwhile, Julia saw swarms of crabs returning. She opened fire, killing some, but more kept coming. Casey appeared above the rock wall and reached out. Despite her injured leg, Julia climbed with everything she had. Together, the family sprinted toward the submarine. Ben covered them with gunfire until Julia and Casey climbed aboard. When the kids were safe, Julia realized she was out of bullets and threw the gun aside, jumping inside. They sealed the hatch as hundreds of crabs climbed over the submarine. And then, the ocean returned. A massive tidal surge slammed into the submarine, tossing them violently through the rising water. The pressure made Julia hallucinate. Casey threw up. They held each other tightly as the submarine was thrown around like a toy. A loud, high-pitched noise echoed again, and all three of them passed out. When Julia and the kids woke up, the submarine had resurfaced, stranded in the middle of a destroyed coastal city. But they were alive. And in that ruined world, there was finally hope for a new beginning. The movie ends here. If you enjoyed the recap, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you never miss more stories like this.